The fantasy football playoffs are here, and the waiver wire is still open in your leagues. How do I know that? Because people that didn't make the fantasy football playoffs are working the waiver wire. Not my leagues, Bloom.
Mm-mm.
That's a philosophy question we got to start with before we jump into the players.
Yeah.
It's pretty thin, of course it would be, but yeah, that's been kind of trending on X.
Mm-hmm.
That like, hey, guys that aren't in the playoffs are making waiver moves. Don't allow them to.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, hey, the season is now the playoffs. I will say this, and this is a good moment to say, get this stuff all explicit in your league charter, constitution, whatever you want to call it. When the playoffs start, then only playoff teams should be able to. I mean, we're talking about not a dynasty league, not a keeper league. In those leagues, of course, the waivers stay open. Of course they do. But in a typical redraft league, when the playoffs start, only playoff teams should be able to pick up waivers. But, in week 14, somebody who's 1-12 should be able to pick up anybody they want and use them to maybe try to give someone a black eye on the way to the playoffs. So we always want people to be competitive. And think about what you would want for your team, your football team, the team you cheer for. You should manage your fantasy team the same way.
Yeah, don't go down without a fight. Does that fight include Desmond Ridder, though? Again, it's pretty thin at
Yeah.
waiver wire for quarterback. So let's start with Desmond Ridder.
Yeah, and thankfully we have 2 quarterback superflex leagues to wide net quarterbacks because Aaron Rodgers, I guess, is someone who might be on the waiver wire that you might look at against Jacksonville this week as a potential streamer. They still got the Rams left, but Desmond Ridder's interesting because he can run. Desmond Ridder is going to have, of course, Brock Bowers. We're talking about Michael Mayer in a little bit. He's got Jacoby Myers. And it's Las Vegas going against Atlanta, Jacksonville, New Orleans. So not a super, super imposing schedule. I don't think you're going to use them in 1 quarterback leagues, but in 2 quarterback superflex leagues, you can see, as someone who ranks the quarterbacks every week, there's a line, a desperation play line that, like, below that, you're looking at a desperation play. That line moves up with each quarterback injury. So
Yes.
Desmond Ridder might be in the top 24 starting quarterbacks, which means he's a starter in typical 2 quarterback superflex leagues.
Well, Aaron Rodgers was probably dumped, and now he's producing, so you might want to pick him up, even if it is just to jock block someone.
Right.
Let's talk about Rodgers.
Yeah, 300-yard game, first one in a while. Jacksonville, their defense actually is still a pretty feisty unit, but you got the Rams in New Jersey. So we'll see about the weather. Looks like there's not going to be any weather games on the horizon this weekend, but maybe week 16, week 17, and then at Buffalo. So I don't know if we're going to play Aaron Rodgers at Buffalo in week 17, although you never know. You could get one of those rare balmy days. See, going to Syracuse, right down the New York Thruway from Buffalo, like 2.5-hour drive. If it was over 40 degrees in December, we were wearing shorts and t-shirts. So maybe you'll get one of those shorts and t-shirts days, and Aaron Rodgers could have a good day in week 17.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe not. A running back position. I think it was Ian Hartitz was like, hey, if you didn't pick up
The backup to the backup to the backup.
Jordan Mason and Isaac Guerrero and Patrick Taylor to back up Christian McCaffrey, then you suck at fantasy football. So I liked the tweet. And then I said, well, let's talk about Patrick Taylor because now he becomes the most important running back in fantasy football.
He does, because, well, Cecil, what do we say when we do the preseason watch list? Why are we so comprehensive? Because the 0th string running back can end up mattering in the fantasy playoffs. Well, here we are. Patrick Taylor, who, remember, famously kept Tony Pollard and Antonio Gibson on the bench in Memphis. Trivia question: who was the running back? Who was the running back that they were behind? Patrick Taylor. San Francisco kicked ass. Sorry, Joe. Kicked some ass. This team has found themselves. They're going to turn around on the Thursday. Isaac Guerrero looked good. Foot injury. Uh-oh. Thursday game. Double uh-oh. So I think you're going to get at least 1 week out of Patrick Taylor, and this team could stay hot. Why not? Because they seem to have found themselves. They play Miami and then Detroit in week 17. That's not as good. We'll worry about them when we get there. Just know that even if you're putting Patrick Taylor on your bench so he can't hurt you in the fantasy playoffs, it's a good move.
Yeah, it's a good move. It's a good move also to go get Isaiah Davis. Anytime we can talk about a jackrabbit, I'm excited.
Yeah. And Cease, in hindsight, and I know Joe Douglas is fired already, so like, does it even matter? But in hindsight, and you're seeing Brees Hall now having problems. And at first, it was reported that it was not his surgically repaired knee, but I think that has been updated that it is his surgically repaired knee.
Ah,
It makes you wonder too, like, why would they go back to back in the 4th and 5th round with running backs? Two pretty good running backs. Braylon Allen has shown a lot more than we expected. He's gotten his game together, but Isaiah Davis right away looks like an NFL running back coming from South Dakota State. And I understood him more as a speed, size prospect that maybe needed some seasoning. But if he's the passing down back and he's contributing, and he's with Aaron Rodgers too, by the way, right? Who is it? Jay Sternberger. See, remember Jay Sternberger when it was his first offseason? He's like, I think Aaron likes me. I think he's not mad at me all the time. Sometimes I get things right. So if you're lining up in the backfield with Aaron Rodgers as a rookie and you're confident and you're out there making plays, that says something for Isaiah Davis. And we're not sure if Brees Hall's going to get shut down. We know it's a committee when Brees Hall's out. I don't think we're going to see Brees Hall in week 15. If he does get shut down, I think Davis could be more valuable than Braylon Allen. So that is something to keep in mind.
that is something to keep in mind as well. Any other running
Yeah,
backs floating
Sincere
around?
McCormick. I mean, Sincere McCormick would be the number one priority. He looked good, and they did really use him as a true feature back, and they're going to continue to do that. Kendre Miller out of the doghouse. And then what about Jaleel McLaughlin? Cease. Because he did get, 14 carries, 80 some yards, bye-week adjustments. You were saying a long time ago, like 6 months ago, he looked like the best running back. Could we come all the way full circle for the fantasy playoffs that he is the best, at least fantasy running back on the team?
Yeah, he's been producing the most. The curious case of Sean Payton, though, says he's been talking about Audric Estime a lot.
Oh boy.
So, yeah, it's still a hot hand approach. It just depends if Audric gets a chance to be that hot hand. They got 4 games left. We'll see if it happens. But Jaleel's producing as a runner and as a receiver. So, from fantasy lens, he's the top back. But for the Broncos top back, that means like he got 50 yards.
Right. Right.
Congrats. There you go. All right, wide receiver position we go. And without Lad McConkey, Josh Palmer did a hell of a job, huh?
Yeah, Josh Palmer, and I think there was a deep ball. If Justin Herbert was dialed in, Palmer could have really came through. And Quentin Johnson did get a touchdown. We're just wondering about Lad McConkey. If Lad McConkey's situation is going to keep him from contributing the way he has, and Justin Herbert's playing a little bit better, then as this team makes a push, by the way, this week against Tampa Bay. So that's a good matchup. You know that you want to start probably at least one of these two wide receivers if McConkey is out. And uh, this is where we're at. And then there's no saviors coming at wide receiver, but there is somebody who may scrape out 12 points for you instead of 8 points. And hey, in your fantasy playoff matchup, that could be the difference.
You'll take everything that you can get, including game balls from Tim Patrick.
Yeah. You love to see it. You really do. Uh, how old is Timmy Pats? He's 33, 34. He's at the end of his career. And just for him to get a chance to catch on and maybe have a chance at a ring is one thing, but to be a big time contributor and a contributor to our fantasy teams. So, see, if the Rams and the Bills combine for 86 points, how many points are the Lions and the Bills going to combine for? Yeah. So, Tim Patrick is going to go right into your lineup, and he should be on the waiver wire. Jalen McMillan also had 2 touchdowns this week on the other side of that Chargers Tampa game. Ray McCloud, well, that's the hookup. Even Darnell Mooney was back getting open downfield, but Ray McCloud has had 2 good games in a row for Atlanta, going up against Las Vegas. So that's another guy you could look at as, in the fantasy playoffs, it's okay to pick someone off the waiver wire and put them right into your lineup because wide receiver has been a very tumultuous, turbulent position this year. And you talk about it, these windows. Windows are opening for these guys, and you need to go. What is it? The Beatles, she came in through the bathroom window, right? Going through these windows, you might find a trophy on the other side.
Yeah, get ready for him to shut, but be ready either way. Fantasy playoff times, tight end time. And that means the guy not named Brock Bowers, but the guy that's a hell of a Y. He's a good all
Yeah.
purpose tight end and back. It's Michael Mayer. So let's talk about him on the waiver wire.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for the next head coach and then next quarterback, Shadur Sanders maybe, to have this 2 tight end offense intact after Michael Mayer was away for the team for personal reasons and got it all sorted out. And now he looks like a guy that was one of the best tight ends in his class as a prospect, a good 2-way tight end, and gives this team that combination, Bowers and Mayer, that really creates offensive flexibility. Now, for teams that were relying on Brock Bowers to be one of their biggest advantages in the fantasy playoffs, it's a little bit of a bummer. But for teams that are rubbing 2 sticks together at tight end and looking for somebody, for Michael Mayer to do that, and I think what you're seeing is Brock Bowers is now going to get that treatment of like Marvin Harrison Jr. or Kyle Pitts back in his rookie year. Yeah, you're a rookie, but we know you're the best threat on the team, so we're going to make sure you don't beat us. That's going to leave Mayer open. The question is whether our first name we talked about, Desmond Ridder, can get the ball to him.
Now, our next section of tight ends, Sigmund, and your full report is available at
Yes.
footballguys.com, upgrades,
Yes.
downgrades, waiver wire report. But the next section can merely be summed up as players coming back from bye.
Right, because Hunter Henry and Zach Ertz, not the most exciting tight ends, but they've had really high floors. I think both of them over the last 7 weeks or so have been solid plays in PPR leagues, 6 out of the last 7 weeks. And again, maybe you don't need, especially Brock Bowers is falling off, maybe you don't need to get 20 points out of your tight end position, but if you get 8 or 10 or 12 instead of 4 or 5, that can be the difference. So as teams went through the bye week crunch, I think that tight end is the position where it's most likely that somebody was dropped that could help you. Noah Brown probably falls into this category also. Maybe Kendrick Bourne, etc. We'll see as New England travels to Arizona, as Washington travels to New Orleans down here. Washington fans, congratulations. You get an excuse to come down here in December.
Exciting times abound. Now, doing the math on the waiver wire show, because I was like, okay, fantasy football playoffs, waivers still open. Let's get it out there. And then a bout of sadness came over me because I was like, oh, we only have 3 more. We only have 3 more times to come together as a community in one of the most important pieces that we do on a weekly basis. And that is, especially for fantasy playoff time, you got to get it tight. I can't tell you to lose weight. I can just say it needs to be tighter. Your fantasy roster needs to lose weight. It needs to be tighter. But in order to do that, you need to make some decisions. So our next section, of course, is where we need your help to come in and scream it to the heavens or whisper it in your brain. Like KRS-One says, when you say that in your head, who is that talking? That's you. So say it. Say it with me. However you get to say it. Say it with Sigmund as we scream it to the heavens. Cue the Chuck D. Segment week 15. Shut them downs.
You know KRS is my number one MC. You know what KRS-One stands for? Knowledge reigns supreme over nearly everyone.
There you go.
So dropping some players. We're dropping some knowledge. We're dropping some players. Jonathan Brooks. That's sad.
Yeah.
That's sad.
That sucks.
Kareem Hunt, now that he's the second fiddle to Isaiah Pacheco in a so-so offense. Obviously in 2 quarterback super flex, Aiden O'Connell, Derek Carr with these injuries. Nick Westbrook-Akina, he had possible game-winning touchdown go off his fingertips, but you can see that's the agony of defeat if he doesn't get a touchdown. You're not really going to flirt with that with Will Levis on the other side of those passes. Cole Kmet, just because the Bears, I guess firing people doesn't work forever to give your team a shot in the arm. The Bears look like, somebody said, let's fire Matt Eberflus again just to see if it works this time. Cole Kmet off the stat sheet. That's something you cannot afford in the fantasy playoffs.
It's called a bounce, not a dribble.
The dead cat bounce?
Yeah,
the dead head coach bounce?
There you go. Let's get to the next part then, because the opposite of that is going into the fantasy playoffs. Maybe it is Nick Westbrook-Akina. And you're like, you know what? I've had some good times. He got me here. The amazing surge of fantasy points. So it's time to hold on. Who are some of those players in week 15?
Is there anybody? I had a lot of trouble with this one. Kyle Pitts again, just because Kirk Cousins was bad and Atlanta lost, and if they lose again to Las Vegas, and we're waiting to hear, maybe we'll hear some more stuff during the week that it's closer than we think. But Kyle Pitts, just to see if Michael Penix gets out there, because one of the things that's been pointed out, Cecil, we can end on this note. Everybody, coaches, players from that Washington team has underachieved in the NFL this year. Was Michael Penix actually the reason that Washington was good? Is Michael Penix going to be the savior? Like you said, Cease, could we get a really excellent storyline of the Falcons rally to win the NFC South and Michael Penix goes into the playoffs as this wonderful mystery box? So Kyle Pitts, I guess that's it. But at this point, I think it's kind of, we're almost at the Marcy Rossman point in the season, Cease.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's not many players to hold on to. There are players that have been getting you there are going to get you there, or you're going to be starting Patrick Taylor.
You're scrambling. You're trying. You're trying. That is for sure. All right. That is a wrap for today's program. Of course, the full upgrades, downgrades, waiver wire report written by Sigmund Bloom is available at footballguys.com. And as we are in the holiday season, you want to buy a Football Guys subscription, that would be fantastic for us. And for you as well. For you first and foremost. For us, though, because we don't ask to any silly super chats or anything like that. We just ask if you enjoy the show. We give you, I think this is we're approaching about 300. We're like 280 something. And also our Bob Harris daily updates on our Audible feed for podcasts for your listening purposes on Spotify or Apple Music, however you enjoy your podcasts. We appreciate you. Follow Sigmund Bloom on the socials at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. The show is at the Audible, saying, watch the videos that pop up if they pop up. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.